Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel called Zuzanareacts, where I learn all things about with your help, and I just share my Slovak Central European point of view. And in today's video we are going to look into like the biggest wedding, the Ambani wedding that took place, and we are going to look at it from a different angle. And I'm just very curious, not only about the extravaganza that went on and what basically the richest man in India can afford to do, but also what is the economical impact of that for India. Good thing, bad thing? Let's find out together. But before we do,
please like this video and click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification. Thank you so much for your support.
So let's get started.
Everybody, the Ambanis just had a blast with perhaps the most expensive wedding in Indian history.
Extravagant wedding of Anant Ambani. It's a wedding unlike anything we've seen before.
And while the entire nation is trying to contemplate the scale and opulence of the Ambanis, there are two schools of contrasting thoughts that have emerged all across the country. While on one side, there is a segment that believes that it is a complete waste of money and the Ambanis are setting the wrong example.
You have wealth, but yeah, we get it, you have wealth. That's it. Like, there's no need to show off that much.
They're doing way too much. I think now they're just showing off.
On the other side, there is just absolute appreciation and astonishment for the sheer scale and opulence of the wedding because they see it as a testament to the Indian ambition and achievement.
The opulent wedding of the son of India's richest man.
Asia's richest man. Asia's richest man.
Richest man.
Is throwing his youngest son a lavish wedding in Mumbai.
From Bollywood stars to FIFA bosses to Tony Blair to Boris Johnson, the Ambani wedding has brought them all together.
It's a wedding so massive, so mega, even the warm-up events put the royals to shame.
Thanks to the Ambani family, I am here tonight.
But you know what, guys? While most people see this event as just another wedding, what they often forget is that this wedding is giving India an insane power advantage. And if replicated by all billionaires, it could boost our exports and save thousands of crores in taxpayers' money. Seems difficult, right? Well, guess what? The British press has actually used their royal wedding as a carefully crafted marketing strategy for decades.
Great Stewart of Scotland has finally chosen his bride. She is Lady Diana Spencer, and their engagement is the news Britain has been waiting for.
By 8 o'clock, police estimated 900,000 people were already out in central London.
I, Diana Frances, take thee, Philip Charles Dr. George, to my wedded husband.
And into the afternoon sunshine there came Prince Charles and the new Princess of Wales, smiling and looking wonderfully relaxed.
Look at these numbers. In 2011, the American Super Bowl was viewed by 111 million people, whereas the royal wedding of Kate Middleton and Prince Harry was viewed by 160 million people. In 2018, while the FIFA World Cup final was viewed by 1.1 billion people, the royal wedding of Meghan and Prince Harry was viewed by 1.9 billion people. So these events aren't just fairy tales, they are billion-dollar marketing campaigns that have brought immense benefits to the UK economy. And this is because of a strange power that a country acquires, which the Harvard professor Joseph Nye defines as soft power. So the question is, what is this concept of soft power? How is this Ambani wedding in any way associated with boosting Indian exports? How did the royals of UK create a billion-dollar return using these weddings? And most importantly, what are the lessons that India needs to learn from this iconic marketing strategy? To understand the importance of the Ambani wedding, we first need to understand the meaning of something called soft power and hard power. Hard power is when a country uses its military might, economic might, or political influence to control or benefit from a country. The best example for this is China and Pakistan. In the past few years, if you've seen China first used its debt trap strategy to give unreasonable loans worth $26.5 billion to Pakistan. And then they used their economic might to give contracts to Chinese builders with Chinese workers. And eventually, they used their military might to take control of the Gwadar port in Pakistan.
The Pakistan cabinet has transferred the operations responsibility of the Gwadar port from Singapore to China.
China is exploiting developing economies.
The PLA Navy is the largest in terms of numbers of surface ships and vessels.
The Chinese policy in Africa is often described as a debt trap. Experts say it is a part of a deliberate strategy to loan unmanageable sums to African countries.
Similarly, US invaded Iraq in 2003 using its military might to exercise control over Iraq. And this is exactly what Russia is doing to Ukraine. This is what you call as hard power. But if you look at soft power, it is a method to influence a country not with military might, but with appeal and culture. And the best example of soft power is the rise of South Korea.
The success of the South Korean film Parasite, just named Best Picture at the Oscars, is expected to give another boost to the
Korean wave.
Squid Game.
Squid Game.
Squid Game.
A gory dystopian thriller on track to be the most watched streaming sensation ever.
BTS's last concert in Seoul created nearly as much economic gains as the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics in early 2018.
You see, back in the early 2000s, South Korea was largely known for its cars and smartphones, and this is because of Hyundai and Samsung. But today, when I mention South Korea, most people think of K-pop, BTS, South Korean beauty products, and Squid Games. And do you realize none of these entities were popular 5 years back? So the question is, suddenly, how did this transition happen and how is it helping South Korea become more powerful? Well, this transformation started in 1994 when President Kim was told that the movie Jurassic Park generated as much revenue as the export of 1.5 million Hyundai cars.
Wow.
I repeat, the movie Jurassic Park generated as much revenue as the export of 1.5 million Hyundai cars. And the reason why Jurassic Park did so well all across the world was because they had a very strong foundation of the American movie industry's distribution as well as the American cultural influence all across the world. And that is when the government of South Korea realized that the exporting of culture and influence is very, very important. And the best part is you don't need an army budget or an expensive factory to have this cultural influence over other countries. So the South Korean government introduced special policies to support export-focused cultural industries. For example, they expanded their budget for cultural industry from $14 million in 1998 to $84 million in 2001. And they increased subsidies for several cultural startups across the country. So soon enough, South Korea started exporting content to the world in the form of music, drama series, and movies. And this is where we saw the rise of K-pop drama and the world-famous music band, which we all know today as BTS. And with the rise of these content pieces that hit...
Can I just say I know nothing about South Korea or the K-pop and nothing about BTS. I only heard of Squid Game, which I never watched.
the right chord with the audience, 4 crazy things happened for South Korea. Number 1, the South Korean drama and movies fascinated the people around the world so much that tourism to South Korea started spiking. If you see this chart, the arrivals of tourists in South Korea shot up from 8.8 million in 2010 to 17.5 million in 2019. This resulted into billions of dollars of economic output for South Korea. Number 2, South Korean exports began to rise by billions of dollars. In fact, if you see this chart, the South Korean skincare cosmetic exports has exploded from $320 million in 2011 to $3.82 billion in 2023.
Korea's outbound shipments of cosmetics reached $2.3 billion in Q1 this year, which is a surge by almost 22% from the same quarter last year, as well as the year before, when the figure stood at $1.9 billion.
K-entertainment as well has played a key role in popularizing Korean culture around the world.
The demand for Korean beauty products, or K-beauty, continues to rise.
And the reason why it shot up so much is because the K-pop movies and series have fascinated people with their beautiful skin. And when you see the macro picture, it's even crazier. The boy band BTS alone has generated $3.67 billion for the South Korean economy, and it has resulted into a job creation for 8,000 people.
Wow.
This is the combined impact of BTS alone on exports, consumption, and tourism. Similarly, Netflix is now planning to invest $2.5 billion into just South Korean projects, and the global K-pop beauty market is projected to be worth $18.32 billion by 2030. And last and most importantly, while countries like India are worried about brain drain, South Korea is witnessing brain gain, whereby people from all around the world are coming to South Korea to study. If you don't believe me, look at this chart. If you look at the number of people appearing for a TOEIC, which is like their version of TOEFL, you will see that the number of people taking the test has increased from 106,000 in 2010 to 375,000 in 2019. So while we are losing the smartest people in the country to brain drain, South Korea is able to attract talent, which first spends money on education, gets a job, and then pays taxes to the South Korean economy. This is how South Korea has used its soft power to extract $1 billion output without military might and without an economic might. They have done that merely by exporting culture and appeal all across the world. This is what we call as soft power. Now the question over here is, soft power is practiced by a country, that is fine. But how can soft power be developed with a single wedding? And why do I say that all billionaires in India must celebrate their wedding with the same opulence as that of the Ambanis? Well, that is because, ladies and gentlemen, the royal wedding of UK has actually laid out $1 billion playbook on how to use a wedding to generate $1 billion output for the GDP. And here's where the magical stat that I told you comes into play. So in 2011, while the climax of the American Super Bowl was viewed by 111 million people, the Kate Middleton wedding was watched by 72 million people on YouTube alone and 116 million people in total. Similarly, in 2018, while the final of the FIFA World Cup was viewed by 1.1 million people, the Meghan Markle wedding was seen by 1.9 billion people. So practically 1/3 of the entire world watched the royal wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan. So now the question is, so what if 1.9 billion people are watching this? How can this generate an economic output for the country? Well, that is because, ladies and gentlemen, just like our influencers set a fashion trend in India, Kate Middleton, Princess Diana, and Meghan Markle are the most OG influencers in the world because of the British press. And just like you see hundreds of reels on what Anant is wearing and what Radhika is wearing, the British press obsessively covered every aspect of the royals, because of which they became a sensation all across the world. And every piece of content on them became an instrument of marketing. And this insane amplification gave the royals three major superpowers. Number one, the royals were able to spike the sales of the British products all across the world. And anything and everything that they wore became a fashion sensation, eventually resulting into $1 million sale. For example, when Kate Middleton wore a blue Isa dress on her engagement, in less than 24 hours, the dress was sold out across multiple countries. Not just in UK, but in multiple countries. And look at this chart. After she wore the Russell and Bromley knee-high boots, the sales jumped by 663%. The sales of George Nude hosiery increased by 500%.
Wow.
And 300 people were in the waiting list for a 300-pound black coat, and this was because Kate wore it to a wedding. And in general, whatever the royals wore, the sales of those products shot up by 600 to 700%. This is the first superpower that the royals have, which is their ability to shoot up the popularity of British brands all across the world. At the same time, they can also make foreign brands extremely popular in the UK. This is the reason why the Newsweek says that the Kate effect is worth £1 billion to the UK fashion industry. Secondly, the royals used their soft power in the UK to spread awareness about those issues that were often overlooked in the UK. And this is where the royals' PR came in very handy. Until then, everyone assumed that the royal families are supposed to be absolutely perfect. But in the early 1990s, Princess Diana gave out a series of interviews about her mental health and publicly spoke about her condition of bulimia.
Eating disorders, whether it be anorexia or bulimia, show how an individual can turn the nourishment of the body into a painful attack on themselves. Yes, people are dying from eating disorders, but with help and patient nurturing, people suffering from eating disorders can find a better way of coping with their lives.
Similarly, in the mid-80s, AIDS had terrified the world because of a lack of understanding as well as misinformation.
Acquired immune deficiency syndrome, or AIDS, started as an exclusively gay disease. This depression of the immune system can lead to a rare form of cancer, Kaposi sarcoma, which shows up as those purplish spots. This cancer has a death rate of 80% 2 years after diagnosis. AIDS also causes unusual infections, with death rates of 100% in 2 years.
Princess Diana opened an AIDS unit at London Middlesex Hospital. And while most people isolated AIDS patients with the belief that someone could catch HIV through touch, Princess Diana shook the hand of a man suffering with AIDS without gloves in front of the world media. And this made headlines all across the world, and it revolutionized the facilities for AIDS all across the world.
Today, the hospital reckoned that the princess's visit was worth all the government propaganda put together. She met the staff and the 9 patients and shook hands with them all.
And you know what, guys? Even after her death, her public donations were amounting to more than $100 million. And this money was used to support the social causes that Princess Diana stood by. Such was the contribution and legacy of the legendary Princess Diana. And last and most importantly, as the British press amplified the lifestyle of the royals, documentaries were made. The Netflix series Crown, even today, is a massive hit worldwide. And all of these contents put together, they enhanced the perception of UK to such an extent that today, UK attracts tourists from all across the world. And this is what results into top-of-the-mind marketing. And same is the case with UK also. When you see the lifestyle of these people, when you see the pictures being clicked, which look absolutely beautiful, almost like a scenery out of a drawing book, automatically you tend to assume that the entire UK is as beautiful as that picture. In this case, if you see the tourism to these royal places, Windsor Castle was the most popular royal estate location in the UK, and it almost recorded 1.1 million paid visitors between April 22 and March 23. Similarly, millions of students flock to UK for education because they believe that the lifestyle in UK is absolutely aspirational, very comforting, and the entire UK looks like a lush green garden. And if you see this number, a staggering figure of 679,970 international students came to the UK in 2022 alone. And just like the students in South Korea, even these students from all across the world flock to the UK, they pay for education, and eventually they get a job and contribute to the UK economy with both consumption and taxes. So long story short, because of this aspirational value building, a country can attract both tourists and students from all across the world. Eventually, it could result into $1 billion economic output. And these students, just like in South Korea, they come to UK, they pay for education, and eventually they contribute to the UK economy both with consumption and taxes. This is the benefit of soft power through media publicity. If this is very, very clear to you, let's come to the Ambanis and see why the Ambani should do even more publicity, which could drastically increase India's soft power and goodwill all across the world. Firstly, the Ambanis are playing a major role in promoting the richness of Indian culture, Indian cuisine, and Indian dresses all across the world. And the reason why every billionaire must happily promote our culture is because we already have a very strong Indian cuisine ecosystem all across the world.
My favorite is always the chicken tikka masala.
What's your favorite foreign food to eat on tour?
I like Indian. California has the largest Indian population in the US, which means we get some of the tastiest Indian food there is.
For example, did you know that the national food of England is actually chicken tikka? And back in 2012, on a weekly basis, 2.5 million customers would eat at 10,000 restaurants employing 80,000 people. All of this is just because of Indian food. And today, Indian food alone contributes more than 5 billion pounds to the British economy. And recently, when I visited Dubai, I was shocked to see that Indian restaurants like Asha's and Rang have a waiting period of 30 to 50 minutes. And that's not because there are Indians sitting inside. It was because people from all across the world were flocking to have Indian food. And just like Indian food, lehengas are already gaining popularity both in Australia and UK. So when celebrities from all across the world come to India, wear Indian dresses, have Indian food or comment about Indian culture, it is a big boost to the soft power of India. In fact, if you saw the wedding, Isha Ambani chose to wear a Manish Malhotra, Kim Kardashian wore Tarun Tikhiliani, and everyone from John Cena to former Prime Minister of UK Tony Blair himself, they all wore an Indian attire. This is how these celebrities became a walking, talking ambassador of Indian culture. And if you see the adoption of Indian designers in the foreign market, designers like Gaurav Gupta are already being picked by Beyonce and Cardi B. In fact, even at the 2023 Grammys, Cardi B chose a Gaurav Gupta collection and Beyonce featured in a Gaurav Gupta collection during her Renaissance tour. This is the power of endorsing Indian culture through celebrities and getting eyeballs from all across the world. Secondly, while most people only see the opulence and expenditure of the Ambanis, what we often forget is the insane contribution of the Ambanis in terms of promotion of social activity like Annadan and animal welfare. And I, being a regular animal welfare donor myself, I know what is the pathetic state of animals in India and how primitive our animal healthcare system is. But during this time, if someone like Anand is pouring in hundreds of crores into building a 3,000-acre Vantara, or when the Tata set up a hospital for animal welfare, it is sending out a very strong message of inspiration for the millionaires and the billionaires of India.
This is Vantara.
Vantara isn't your typical wildlife sanctuary though.
ये वंतारा जो नाम है, ये है जंगल का सितारा.
It is focused on rescue and rehabilitation instead of just conservation.
Vantara has been conceptualized and brought to life under the leadership of Anant Ambani.
My vision is that Vantara in Jamnagar, we would like to be the world's most advanced wildlife institute.
Similarly, my mother has been insisting on Annadan for decades, but it's only when the Ambanis did Annadan for 51,000 people and got 50 underprivileged couples married that this norm of social service became a talk of the town. So again, just like the Tatas and Ambanis have published their goodwill in front of the world, if all billionaires and Indian upper class people start publicizing their charity, it will be a matter of utmost benefit for the Indian society, and more importantly, it will be a matter of utmost pride for the Indian culture. And last and most importantly, the Ambani wedding, or for that matter any billionaire's wedding, when presented so well with global celebrities bringing eyeballs to India from all across the world, it sets an aspirational value for India. And you would be shocked to know that even today, in spite of being the 5th largest economy in the world, a large segment of the world still perceives India to be a nation of snake charmers. And if we have to change this, either the government could spend billions or the billionaires could use their special occasions and do it for the government. So if Mukesh Ambani holds Isha's pre-wedding festivities in Udaipur and Akash and Anand's wedding at the Geo World Center in Mumbai, it is a huge marketing boost for the wedding industry of India. In fact, if we stretch it even far and billionaires celebrate their wedding in some undiscovered place in India, it would result into a massive influx of foreign weddings in India. In fact, Italy today makes billions of dollars because foreigners hold their weddings in Italy. And this includes Virat Kohli and Anushka Sharma. This is the macro perspective of the Ambani wedding, the importance of soft power, and the billion-dollar impact of such an activity at the global scale for India. And I just hope that more billionaires do the same and spend billions to market India to the world. And this brings us to the last part of the episode, and that are the business lessons that we need to learn from this case study. Lesson number 1. Soft power is a much easier billion-dollar strategy than hard power. While hard power is often seen as violent, forceful, and repulsive, soft power is seen as acceptable, lucrative, and aspirational. Hard power requires an expenditure of $1 billion, whereas soft power results into a profit of $1 billion. Lesson number 2. India needs to understand that India needs to be marketed. And like I said in my Dubai case study, while marketing has turned Dubai into a tourism sensation, in spite of it being built on a desert, here in India, we have everything from mountains to forests to beaches to even the most beautiful desert lands in the world. So if Indian tourism needs to become a multi-billion-dollar industry, we need to spend billions to market India to the world. Either this money comes from the taxpayers or it will come from Mukesh Bhai and friends. Either ways, India needs to be marketed. And lastly, always remember, Here in India, a businessman is spending his own money, which is, by the way, benefiting your country. And while India has been a socialist country which often hates on the rich, it is my humble opinion that unless they are doing something that harms the environment or the reputation of the country, we must respect their space and just mind our own business. Because always remember, when we ourselves pull down our own people, it becomes the perfect instrument for foreign media to degrade the image of our country. This was the story of the great Ambani wedding, the soft power advantage, and the lessons that India needs to learn from the royal wedding of UK.
So I believe this is it for the video. So I came across this wedding just on the fact that Justin Bieber performed, and that apparently there was like a big mayhem about like there was some sort of drama around him not wanting to stay and whatever. But I guess people don't realize how much security a person like that has to have, and it was just a paid for engagement and stuff like that. So, but I just wonder, from your point of view, first of all, I'm very curious, how do you view in India, how do you view this wedding? And is there a difference between now that you watch this Thanks School video or you have the same point of view? I think that he is making a lot of, I really like this guy. I mean, this channel is amazing. This guy is so smart, so on point, really, really, really like him. And when he was talking about like India needs to be marketed, etc., and that's kind of like how basically Americans, like I call them the masters in superficial, like they are the best in making things look so amazing where it's not like that in reality. And I think that he's completely right. Like I think you, whatever you say, but they are, in the end, they've been like really making India visible, and they were making India, which is rich and opulent, visible. Maybe some people might not agree with that approach of, like the lady mentioned, like you have all the wealth, maybe you shouldn't. But there is 100%. I'm standing by this guy from this Thanks School, because there is a huge economical thing that you can do, and you're doing at the expense of a billionaire. You like, he's throwing that, like he's bearing all those costs, and the benefits are actually going to the country in the form of PR. The first thing that I was thinking about, because I come from advertising background, is that like this is a free PR for the country that no one can even like evaluate in terms of like how much money would it be to, let's say, promote India in that way. Then you have all the super famous people coming. I'm not saying, I guess, Justin Bieber wore an Indian designer, but it looked like all the people that came, they came, even, I don't know, Kim Kardashian was invited and she came in Indian attire, which she can promote like a nice Indian clothing. And it's a huge value. So this is why I'm very curious what you guys think about this yourself, like if this is going to contribute to the growth of India and creating new impressions about India, and then or not, So there was something that I've written down. Because he was talking about like the India is a country of snake charmers. Now, here's the thing, right? Like, I've never really watched the media. And my only experience from India about India is from working with Indian people, and then from you guys, right? So I think you really need to be careful, especially all the warriors online, about how you talk about your own country, because you actually introduce all these stereotypes to me. I had zero kind of predispositions about India, like zero. I saw India very neutral. Nothing was like negative or maybe positive in my mind, take it as you will. And I really like haven't given like thought when it comes to this type of a content. And then when you start always saying like, oh, this is how they portray India, this is how they portray, this is actually what you are doing. You are introducing your limiting beliefs about India, propagated maybe from the media that you see, in your country, that is outside of your country, that makes sense, to people that personally don't really even need to know that, so you are actually spreading that yourself. So I would I would urge you to be very, very careful about this topic because normal people, quote unquote normal people, like an ordinary person, let's say in Europe, they will make their judgment of India not on what media is saying, let me tell you. And if there are people that are impacted by that I would call maybe lower class, for the lack of better expression, but everyone will just here take people's recommendation from their friends and the circle. So for example, when I just been to India, I was ill the entire time. One day I was healthy, one day. And even after I came home, I was ill for another 2 weeks. And it was there was stomach issues as well, but it was mainly, I think, aircon. And I was speaking to a colleague of mine, and he was like, out of 10 people that I know that went to India, only one returned back healthy. So you have to really shift yourself off like spreading unnecessary information about India just because you believe this is what media is saying and that you think that actually people are watching media. And then the only thing that I know how people go about business, at least in this part of the world, is that they ask their friends. And if they say, well, it really sucks to be in India, they will take on that opinion. They say, well, because I got food poisoning, or because everything was very dirty, or it was too crowded, blah, blah, blah. That is what you're fighting against, if you like, So no one is thinking about India as a snake charmers, and I don't know why he has mentioned that. Maybe there is some sort of a data supporting that claim. But at least from the angle where I'm sitting, people just share their own personal experiences about India and how they felt about it. And that helps to form the opinion of India. No more, like, I want you to completely stand out from that media narrative that is nonsensical. And I think normal, ordinary people don't even fall for it. So, yeah. There was something else, but I can't read after myself. Okay, so I think I'll conclude it here. Thank you guys so much for watching this video with me. If you did enjoy, please give a thumbs up, share, like, and subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, please do take care. I'm sending lots of love.